Charlotte Montgomery was once the epitome of elegance and grace, a gentle young lady raised in luxury at her family's stately mansion on the outskirts of Boston. Her life unfolded like a serene dream, enveloped by her parents' love and cozy afternoon tea parties. Her mother, Eleanor, was a tender woman, always dedicating her heart to her family and the vibrant rose garden behind their home. Her father, Richard, was a successful businessman, yet he always knew how to balance his work with precious moments spent with his wife and daughter. However, that dream suddenly burst like a soap bubble. The seemingly perfect marriage of Charlotte's parents unexpectedly fractured. Arguments grew more frequent, and hurtful words cut deep into Eleanor's sensitive heart. Charlotte, despite her efforts to mend things, could not prevent the tragedy that befell them. After a major argument, her mother, a fragile and delicate woman, suffered a fatal stroke. Her mother's death was a fatal stab, severing the last link between Charlotte and her former peaceful life. The grief of losing her mother, coupled with the disappointment and anger over her parents' broken marriage, plunged Charlotte into a dark abyss. She was no longer the gentle, sweet Charlotte of old. Instead, she plunged into endless nights of revelry, extravagant parties, and fleeting relationships as a way to escape the harsh reality. Boston's glittering lights and vibrant bars became a refuge for her shattered soul. She drank, danced, and laughed emptily, trying to fill the void in her heart with noise and superficiality. Her father, Richard, was also immersed in grief and regret. He watched his daughter sink deeper into a drifting lifestyle, but he was helpless. Finally, after many sleepless nights, he decided he had to act. He knew Charlotte needed a drastic change, a completely different environment to heal her emotional wounds. "Charlotte," he said, his voice somber on a gloomy morning as she had just returned from a long night out, "you're going to Oregon." Charlotte looked up, her eyes dark and vacant. "Oregon? What are you talking about, Father?" "The family's grape and orange farm in the Willamette Valley. You're going there to manage it." Richard was firm. "You need a peaceful place away from all this superficiality. Your mother loved that place dearly. She always said it was where her soul found peace." Charlotte vehemently protested. She didn't want to leave Boston, didn't want to face the memories of her mother, of a life she had lost. But Richard gave her no choice. He had arranged everything. "This isn't a request, Charlotte. This is a decision." His voice deepened, mixed with weariness and resolve. "I know you're hurting, but you can't keep dwelling in the darkness. Your mother wouldn't want to see you like this." Her father's words were like a splash of cold water in Charlotte's face. Her mother, Eleanor. The name still made her heart ache. She knew her father was right. Her mother, who always loved the peace and beauty of nature, would never want her to live such a meaningless life. With a heavy heart and extreme reluctance, Charlotte accepted. She packed her bags, leaving behind Boston's dazzling lights, endless parties, and the shattered pieces of an irreparable past. The flight to Oregon felt like a journey into the unknown, where she had no idea what awaited her. As the plane landed at Portland Airport, Charlotte felt a fresh, cool breeze, completely different from the suffocating air of the city. She rented a car and drove south towards the Willamette Valley. The further she went into the countryside, the more the scenery changed. Skyscrapers gradually disappeared, giving way to lush green fields, gentle rolling hills, and rows of maple trees beginning to turn golden, brilliant red under the late afternoon sun. The winding road curved, flanked by towering ancient trees whose wide canopies covered a long stretch of road, creating a cool green tunnel. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, forming shimmering streaks of light on the road. The air was fresh, carrying the scent of damp earth, grass, and a faint hint of wild flowers. Charlotte took a deep breath, feeling her chest lighten slightly. Finally, she turned onto a small dirt road, leading to the Montgomery farm. Before her stood a large wooden house, a typical American country architectural style with wide windows overlooking the garden. The house was built of stone and wood, with a sloping roof and large windows welcoming the sunlight. Surrounding it was a lush green lawn, neatly trimmed and potted plants arranged tidily. Although not a luxurious mansion like in Boston, the house exuded warmth, solidity, and peace. As she parked, a middle-aged man stepped out of the house. He had salt and pepper hair, deep blue eyes, and a kind smile. It was David Miller, the farm's caretaker, who had been with the Montgomery family for over 20 years. David was not just a caretaker, he was also a close friend of Charlotte's mother and someone who had watched her grow up since she was a child. "Welcome home, Miss Charlotte," David said, his voice warm and sincere. "It's been a long time since we've seen you." Charlotte nodded, trying to force a smile. "Hello, David. I'm back." David helped her carry her luggage into the house. The interior of the house was as warm and simple as its exterior. Furniture was neatly arranged. The scent of pine wood wafted everywhere, mixed with a faint, soothing aroma of dried lavender. "The boy is at school," David said as Charlotte looked around. "Ethan, my son. I'm sure you remember him?" Charlotte was slightly startled. She had forgotten David had a son. She vaguely remembered a tiny boy often trailing after her mother in the garden. "Oh yes, I remember now." David was a widower, raising his son Ethan alone after his wife passed away from a long illness a few years ago. His life was not easy, but he always maintained his optimism and kindness. After unpacking, Charlotte walked around the farm. The farm was vast, stretching across gentle rolling hills. Lush green rows of grapevines extended as far as the eye could see, their leaves beginning to turn yellowish, signaling the approaching autumn. Plump, dark purple and bright red grape bunches nestled beneath the vibrant green foliage, shimmering in the afternoon sun. Charlotte reached out and touched a bunch of grapes, feeling its cool freshness and vibrant life. A little further was a large orange grove. Thousands of orange trees were laden with fruit, their golden, round oranges standing out against the deep green leaves. The scent of ripe oranges wafted on the breeze, sweet and refreshing. A strange sense of peace enveloped Charlotte. It had been a long time since she had felt such tranquility and the pure beauty of nature. However, this peace was only temporary. Deep down, Charlotte was still a wounded girl, full of doubt and dissatisfaction. She knew that managing the farm would not be easy, and she wasn't sure she could adapt to the simple, slow-paced life here. The first few days on the farm were a huge challenge for Charlotte. She, a young lady accustomed to comfort and service, now had to face strenuous farm work and simple living rules. David, in his role as caretaker, also served as her guide and supervisor, always by her side. "Miss Charlotte needs to wake up early," David said on the first morning when Charlotte was still drowsy. "The sun is up and we need to be in the garden." Charlotte frowned. "Wake up early, David." "I've never woken up this early." "This is a farm, Miss Charlotte," David gently replied. "Nature waits for no one." Charlotte reluctantly got up, putting on work clothes she never thought she'd wear. She followed David to the vineyard. David patiently showed her how to prune branches, how to check for pests, and how to harvest grapes correctly. Charlotte was clumsy, awkward, sometimes even damaging plants. "Miss Charlotte, you need to be more careful," David said, when she accidentally broke a grape branch. "Every grapevine is our hard work." Charlotte felt annoyed. She wasn't used to being told what to do, especially by a caretaker. "I know, you don't have to keep repeating yourself." David just smiled, saying nothing more. His patience and calmness only irritated Charlotte further. She felt trapped, imprisoned in a life she didn't want. However, amidst the difficulties and frustrations, Charlotte also began to notice small things she had never paid attention to before. As she rested under a tree, looking at the plump grape bunches under the sun, she saw a simple yet captivating beauty. She listened to the chirping of birds, the rustling of wind through the leaves, and felt the cool freshness of the air. One afternoon, as she was struggling to pick oranges, Ethan, David's son, ran over. The boy was about 10 years old with brown hair and bright eyes. "Miss Charlotte, let me help you," Ethan said, his voice clear. He nimbly climbed the tree, picking ripe oranges with ease. Charlotte watched the boy in surprise. "You're doing great." "I'm used to it," Ethan smiled. "My dad taught me since I was little. The oranges here are very sweet, Miss Charlotte. Try one." The boy handed her an orange. Charlotte took a bite. The sweet, refreshing taste spread in her mouth, washing away her fatigue. It was the best orange she had ever tasted. "Thank you." "Ethan," Charlotte said, a rare smile appearing on her face. Ethan was a well-behaved, polite boy who loved his father very much. He often helped David with work on the farm and always brought a positive energy. Ethan's innocence sometimes warmed Charlotte's heart, but it also reminded her of her own childhood, of carefree days with her mother. One evening, after dinner, David invited Charlotte to sit down for tea. "Would Miss Charlotte like to hear a story?" he asked. Charlotte shrugged. "As you wish." David recounted his memories with Charlotte's mother, about the days Eleanor spent with him caring for the farm, about her love for the vineyards and orange groves. He told her how Eleanor had transformed the place into a peaceful paradise, where she found joy in every flower, every fruit. "Your mother was a special woman," David said, his eyes distant. "She always saw beauty in the simplest things. She said that life is like a grapevine. It needs to go through sun and rain, storms, to produce the sweetest grapes." Charlotte listened, her heart gently stirred. David's stories were not just about her mother, but also about a philosophy of life she had forgotten. Her mother had once taught her these things, but she had been too engrossed in the superficialities of the city to pay attention. That night, Charlotte lay in bed, looking out the window. Moonlight illuminated the garden, creating a magical scene. She thought about her mother, about David's words. She began to wonder if she had been wrong to run away from this life. Could it be that here, amidst the vineyards and orange groves, she could find the peace her mother once had? As time passed, Charlotte gradually grew accustomed to life on the farm. She still had moments of irritability and discomfort, but their frequency had significantly decreased. She began to take a more active role in the work, learning from David little by little. She learned to distinguish grape varieties, how to care for orange trees, and how to harvest produce. The smell of earth, leaves, and ripe fruit was no longer foreign but became familiar and pleasant. One morning, just as the sun was rising, Charlotte went to the vineyard. Dew still clung to the leaves, sparkling like diamonds. The plump, vibrant purple grape bunches appeared clearly in the dawn light. She took a deep breath, feeling the freshness of the air. A sense of peace permeated her soul. David watched Charlotte from afar, a faint smile on his lips. He saw the young woman slowly finding herself again. Charlotte also began to spend time with Ethan. She read books to him, played with him in the garden, and taught him how to draw. Ethan loved Charlotte's stories about Boston, about big cities, but he also loved life on the farm. He often boasted to Charlotte about the farm animals and the games he and his friends played. One time, while picking oranges with Ethan, Charlotte accidentally scratched her hand on a thorn. Ethan quickly ran to get the first aid kit. David appeared, carefully disinfecting her wound. "Miss Charlotte, you need to be more careful," David said, his voice still calm but his eyes showing clear concern. Charlotte looked at him, a warm feeling rising in her heart. She realized that David was not just a caretaker. He was someone who genuinely cared for her. Dinner evenings at the farm became cozier. David often cooked simple but delicious meals, made from fresh ingredients from the farm. Ethan always told funny stories about school and his friends. Charlotte began to share her thoughts, the emotions she'd kept hidden for so long. One evening, sitting on the porch, gazing at the starry sky, Charlotte asked David, "Do you miss your wife much?" David was silent for a moment, then nodded softly. "Every day, Miss Charlotte. She was the most wonderful woman I ever knew. But I know she wouldn't want me to keep dwelling in sadness. I have to live on, for Ethan, and for what she believed in." David's words touched Charlotte's heart. She understood the feeling of loss, and she also understood that moving on, overcoming grief, was necessary. "My mother, too," Charlotte said, her voice choked. "She wouldn't want me to live like a shadow." David looked at her, his eyes full of understanding. "You're doing very well, Miss Charlotte. Your mother would be very proud of you." David's encouraging words were like a tonic, giving Charlotte more strength. She began to view life more positively. She no longer ran from her pain, but faced it, accepting it as part of life. Charlotte also began to explore the beauty of nature around the farm. She hiked through the forests, admired the clear streams, and gazed at the majestic mountains. She sat by the lake watching small boats anchored on the clear blue water and felt a strange tranquility. She saw small ancient houses hidden among the hills and imagined the simple lives of the people there. She also began to take an interest in local culture. She participated in grape harvest festivals, learned traditional winemaking, and enjoyed local specialties. She befriended the kind, simple farmers who had spent their entire lives on this land. Charlotte realized that beauty was not only found in luxurious, dazzling things, but also in the simplest aspects of life. The closeness and sincere sharing drew David and Charlotte closer. Charlotte no longer saw David as merely a caretaker, but as a friend, a brother, and sometimes a solid anchor. David also no longer saw Charlotte as a demanding young lady, but as a young woman seeking peace and happiness. They spent much time together, not only in work but also in everyday moments. David taught Charlotte how to fix broken things in the house, how to care for her mother's flower garden, and how to bake delicious apple pies. Charlotte told David about the books she had read, the movies she had watched, and the dreams she once had. Ethan, with his childlike innocence, became a bridge between the two. The boy adored Charlotte and always found ways to bring them together. One afternoon, after finishing the grape harvest, David and Charlotte rested under an ancient tree. The golden afternoon sun stretched across the rows of grapevines, creating a romantic scene. "David," Charlotte softly said, "I feel like I've changed so much since coming here." David looked at her, his gaze tender. "Miss Charlotte has become much stronger." "Not just stronger," Charlotte smiled. "I feel more peaceful, happier. I think I've found where I belong." David was silent for a moment, then gently took her hand. His hand was calloused from labor, but warm and steady. Charlotte didn't pull her hand away. She felt the sincerity and affection he held for her. Love blossomed between them naturally, gently like petals falling in the wind. It wasn't a passionate, fiery love, but a mature, deep love, built on understanding, sharing, and trust. They overcame the challenges of managing the farm together. Once a big storm hit, threatening to destroy the entire orange grove. David and Charlotte stayed up all night trying to protect the orange trees. Under flashlight beams, they stretched tarps and braced trees, defying the rain and wind. When the storm passed, despite some damage, most of the orange grove was saved. They looked at each other, tired but happy. "We did it." "David," Charlotte said, her voice hoarse. "We did it, Charlotte," David replied, his eyes sparkling with pride. Such moments bonded them together, making their love grow stronger each day. As Charlotte and David grew closer, a new challenge emerged. Richard, Charlotte's father, decided to visit the farm. He was very happy to see his daughter had changed positively, no longer the rebellious girl she once was. However, when he realized the affection between Charlotte and David, he was displeased. "Charlotte, what are you doing?" Richard said, his voice stern. "David is our caretaker. You can't have feelings for him." Charlotte firmly defended her love. "Father, David is more than just a caretaker. He is a kind, sincere man, and he has helped me so much. I love him." Richard did not accept it. He believed David was not worthy of his daughter, a distinguished young lady. He wanted Charlotte to return to Boston, continue her old life, or find a man of suitable social standing. The argument between Charlotte and her father was fierce. Charlotte felt hurt and disappointed. She had found happiness, found where she belonged, but her father wanted to take it all away. David also felt the pressure. He didn't want Charlotte to face difficulties because of him. He had thought about leaving so Charlotte could live the life her father desired. However, Ethan helped them overcome this difficulty. The boy, with his innocence and love for both Charlotte and David, spoke to Richard. "Grandpa," Ethan said, his voice young but full of sincerity, "Miss Charlotte is very happy here. Mr. David is, too. I want Miss Charlotte to stay with us." Ethan's words touched Richard's heart. He saw the sincerity in his grandson's eyes, and he realized that his daughter's happiness was the most important thing. He remembered Eleanor, remembered what she had once said about love and peace. Finally, Richard accepted. He realized that love does not discriminate by status or circumstances. The most important thing is sincerity and happiness. After Richard returned to Boston, Charlotte and David had a serious conversation about their future. They decided to stay on the farm, build a family together, and live a peaceful and happy life. Charlotte and David's wedding was simple but warm at the farm. There were no extravagant parties, no distinguished guests, only their closest family and friends from the farm. Charlotte wore a pure white wedding dress with a wreath of wildflowers in her hair. David wore a smart suit but still exuded the rustic charm of a farmer. Ethan was the ring bearer. The boy smiled brightly. They exchanged vows under a green archway amidst the rows of grapevines and laden orange groves. The golden sunlight stretched across their faces like a blessing from nature. Charlotte and David's married life was filled with joy and happiness. They worked together to care for the farm, overcame difficulties together, and enjoyed peaceful moments together. Charlotte was no longer the fragile young lady she once was. She became a strong, independent woman, full of vitality. She loved her work on the farm, loved the smell of earth, oranges, and grapes. She loved waking up early with David, going to the garden together, and watching the sunrise together. David remained a calm, sincere, and reliable man. He always loved and cared for Charlotte and Ethan. He taught Ethan how to work, how to be responsible, and how to love nature. Ethan grew up in the loving embrace of Charlotte and David. He was intelligent, bright, and loved his parents very much. He often helped Charlotte and David with their work and always brought laughter to the family. In the evenings, the whole family often gathered by the fireplace, reading books together, telling stories, or simply sitting in silence, listening to the wind rustling through the trees. The small house was cozy, filled with laughter and love. Charlotte often walked around the farm in the late afternoon when the last rays of sunlight stretched across the rows of grapevines, painting the entire sky golden. She sat by the lake watching small boats anchored and felt a strange tranquility. She remembered her mother and what her mother had taught her. She knew her mother would be very happy to see her find peace and love here. Life on the farm was not always easy. There were times they had to face harsh weather, pests, or financial difficulties, but they always overcame them together with love and faith in each other. Montgomery Farm was not just a place for growing grapes and oranges, but also a place where love, healing, and happiness blossomed. The scent of sunshine and wind from the Willamette Valley blended into Charlotte and David's love, creating a beautiful story of peace, warm family moments, and hope. Charlotte looked at David, her eyes full of love. "I never thought I would find happiness in a place like this." David smiled, squeezing her hand tightly. "Happiness isn't about a place, Charlotte. Happiness is about the people we love and how we embrace life. And under the brilliant sunset, Amidst the lush green vineyards and laden orange groves, Charlotte and David knew they had found their own paradise, where love and peace would forever reign.